Are you struggling to balance your modern life and your faith? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Legacy Dads Podcast with Lance and Dante, offering biblical-based wisdom and that weekly dose of what truly works in men's lives. The Legacy Dads Podcast, real men, authentic faith. Here are your hosts of the Legacy Dads Podcast. They're authentic, transparent, and not always politically correct. Lance and Dante.
Hey everyone, welcome to Legacy Dads. My name is Dante, my partner Lance. Lance, how are you, brother?
Hey, pretty good. We're back on lockdown here, 30 days. Hey, everything.
I watched your YouTube, and I just got a bone to pick with you, by the way. And you and
oh wait, Jen, we can't talk about that yet.
We can't talk about that yet.
No, I gotta wait a few weeks before we put that.
Hey, listeners, let's call the little snippet of what's to come.
Yeah.
But, on a sidebar, I'll pick that up with you a little bit later. But I'm just saying you might want to switch microphones between you and your wife is all I'm saying.
Oh, yeah?
Just saying.
Okay.
Just saying. Anyways, Legacy Dads is your weekly dose of biblical manhood. This podcast is for men, husbands, and fathers in all stages of life where we promote and advocate proven biblical principles for leaving a lasting legacy. Lance, for quite a while now, Legacy Dads listeners have been asking us for resources and more tools to help be better men, husbands, fathers. Problem is that we are way too busy as dads, being full-time husbands, full-time dads, and we barely have a time to squeeze these podcasts in our busy schedules. I mean, we're already a week behind. Normally we do 2x2, and we just can't, keep up with the demands and the idea of what we need to be doing on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But we are now rolling out some resources which we think are going to help our listeners in multiple areas. Lance, you want to explain the first one for our listeners?
Yeah. So this goes back, I don't know how many years now, maybe 5-6 years. And, guys constantly said like, hey man, I love the podcast. I love all you're doing, but could you guys really I need resources to help me kind of get where I'm at right now to the next level type of thing. So, this first resource we basically teamed up with is a Christian counseling resource called Faithful Counseling. Faithful Counseling, it's designed as a solution for people seeking traditional mental health counseling who would prefer hearing from the perspective of a Christian. And this counseling can be done remotely, and it's also kept confidential. So, this first resource is, and I'll tell you this, it's hard. When you get into the counseling world, there's it's very secularized. It's very not Christian friendly in a lot of areas. There are some good Christian places too, but it's hard to find a counselor or a therapist or, somebody you can talk to that's going to line up with your values and your belief system. So really what this is, Faithful Counseling, if you're looking to get some help in your marriage, or you're struggling with, addictions, or maybe it's not you, but it's a member of your family, or your kids need some counseling or something like that. So I'd rather work with someone who shares my beliefs and has a biblical worldview than someone who doesn't. That's just me. So Faithful Counseling is basically an option where you or your family members get matched with a licensed biblical Christian therapist to discuss any areas of life that you want to really improve on. So this is really a resource. Again, we're not talking like, daily checkups and stuff like that. This is more like, hey, we're at a crisis moment, or, we've got a child who's on the verge of suicide or something like that, and we really need some help. That's what this is going to do. And especially with all the COVID stuff going on. So they do this remotely. They do it over, they can do it over computer. They can do it over phone. But basically providing, a Christian counseling perspective, for whatever area you kind of, are struggling with right now, or family members maybe struggling with. So, this is our first resource, and we have a new tab on our webpage called Help. That you can just click on that, or you can go to www.legacydads.org/help, and then you'll see the details there. And then basically what it'll do is it'll send you over to Faithful Counseling, and they will kind of look at what are you looking for. They'll kind of do an assessment, and then they'll kind of line you up with a Christian counselor who is going to align with what you need and your belief system. So that's kind of the first resource that we have for you guys. Okay. Oh, Dante, what else we got here, Dante?
I'm really excited about that. I mean, like I lost my mom back in 2011, and I had my dad. I had, the responsibilities and all that, and that was fine, and I got through that. Young kids and just didn't have time to think. But, when I lost my dad back in 2016, a resource like this I think could have been really good for me, because there were some seasons hit me, and some tough things. I mean, I became all of a sudden the patriarch of the family. And it was very stressful. So to have a resource like this, Lance, I mean, I'm really excited that we're offering that. It's going to be available. And again, look for this at www.legacydads.org/help. So the next resource we are rolling out is online video courses that will give you a step-by-step plan for the most important areas in your life. So Lance, there was a time in your marriage, we've done a podcast on this, we've blogged about this, when you and Jen, literally had the divorce papers ready. Mm-hmm. All the experts and even friends from all of Jen's side, counsel, biblical.
Yeah, it was Jen's side. It was her fault.
Yeah, and just, but I mean, just saying, hey, and even to you, I mean, some people that you talk to, we're just saying, throw a towel on it, just get a divorce, just kill this thing. It's already on its deathbed. It's over. So Lance and Jen are going to be teaching you how they went from divorce papers to a happy, healthy, vibrant marriage, and the common pitfalls that many couples don't realize that they are making. And before I turn this over to you, Lance, you guys, I just want to tell you, I know Jen, I know their kids, I know Lance, I met them, they're like we talked about before when we were, blogging, when we're podcasting, our family, our friends are listening to this. We have people that are guests on this that know us, in and out. And the reality of it is they're watching this, they're modeling that. And I'm telling you, Lance and Jen, from where they were to where they are now and how they're growing. And I'm a little bit jealous on the empty nester stage of their life right now. Uh-huh. We can get into that one later. But, tell us, Lance, I mean, is that right? What we're looking at? Like, what are you guys looking at?
Yeah, you're right. So like my wife and I, we're basically going to walk you through some of the common areas that lead to issues in the marriage or divorce. And then we're going to show you how to not fall into these traps in your own marriage. And so it's kind of like a self-study video course that we're doing. And the course is going to focus on, it's not just giving you information, but it's what we're doing is giving you an actual plan to transform your marriage. Because there's a lot of people out there that just, here's, information, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. But this is an actual plan to help you transform your marriage and to implement some of these practices into your marriage so you have a healthier marriage. So as a bonus, my wife, I've talked about it before, my wife's also a licensed mental health clinician. It's not just like, here's Lance's opinion on what I think would be great for the marriage, but she's going to actually bring in, we're going to, actual evidence-based research and some of the tools that she uses, in marriage counseling to improve marriages. So it's actually like you're getting some free marriage counseling here through this process, when it's not just us, here's our great opinion on what we should do. Yeah, so we're kind of we're in the early stages now of filming this course, but you can sign up now to basically get updates on the course, and you'll be knowing when it's going to be released and all that stuff. And I think there's going to be you'll get some extra special bonuses and stuff if you sign up early. And then in the future, we're also going to be rolling out, as Legacy Dads, going to be rolling out more of these kind of online courses, and they're going to be based on, some of them will be based on parenting and biblical manhood and spiritual leadership and other topics. And, Dante and I will be doing some of these. We may bring in some guests for some of these, but it's going to be, a resource. This is what a lot of guys have been asking for, is resources that you can sit down, you can, watch, you can learn, and you can apply right away in your marriage or whatever area of life you're looking at. So again, you can go, we put up that help tab on the website, or go to legacydads.org /help for more details on that. And then it'll kind of show you. And right now, again, I said it's in the development phase, but if you give us your name and email, say you're interested in this, we'll make sure we let you know when it comes out. And then finally, Dante, this is kind of this will be interesting, as if you don't hear from Dante and I enough in these podcasts each week. So we're going to be rolling out a coaching, mentoring, discipleship program where Dante or myself will work with you personally to improve areas that whether that's with your walk with Christ or your marriage or your parenting or whatever area you feel you need improvement. Okay. So now I want to caution you, this can only be for select people who really want, kind of personal one-on-one coaching and weekly accountability. And if you know from the podcast, we're not going to cut any corners with you, and we're gonna really be honest with you if you're looking at doing this and getting you to that next level. It's going to be an honest man talk. So just setting that up there up front for that. So Dante, I want to talk to you a little bit because you've been doing this for a while and you've got experience walking with other men. But why is this type of thing, this coaching and mentoring, discipleship, why is that so important in the lives of men and some of the guys you walk with?
Just look at the destruction of family in American culture. Look at the destruction of the attack and the assault on the Christian church. And just when you don't have men leading, how it's a ship without rudders or oars. And the reality of it is, Lance, we talk about Barna, we talk about 25 years of empirical data. If you don't, you get the child into the church, you get the child saved, the likelihood that the family comes to know the Lord or comes to the church is like something like 25 to 30%. Mm-hmm. You get the mom that bumps up to 50%. You get the dad. And I mean, it's overwhelmingly anywhere between 80 to 90%, one, depending on where you're at regionally, two, on where the background of the dad is. But the bottom line is, get the dad, you get the family. And, guys, I don't know about you, but this is a subject right here that, like, Lance, you are like, you're moving that fire, you're moving those logs, the embers are burning. I can't even get my marshmallow on the stick right now because I'm just hot thinking about how important this part of Legacy Dads is going to be. And, two things that are really important to me walking into relationships. And I've been leading men's ministry now for, since 2007, I took it on. So, I mean, we're looking at 13 years going on 14, and I'm pumped up. I've gotten beaten. I've gotten, picked at, I've gotten stabbed, but I'll tell you, 1 out of 100 guys, when that brother gets connected, that brother makes the word of God and the authority in his life. That guy takes, his responsibility as spiritual leader in his marriage, in his family, in his community, in his job. I'll tell you, I'll take whatever, the enemy wants to throw at me for that one brother, because when I see the word of God, the word of truth get plugged into that guy and he's alive and thriving, man, I am pumped up. And so when Lance and I are talking about this isn't just a broad brush stroke, this would be something fun. This is a pretty serious step here. And for our listeners, this is something that intrigues you. Look, Lance and I, we're available. We could come to your church. We could do a weekend thing. But the beautiful thing about this COVID thing is realizing the technology and the advances that we have at our fingertips. And the thing that we look at when I'm walking with men, Lance, the thing that I really try to understand is, number one, are they teachable? Yep. And if they're not teachable, I'm wasting my time. And not only am I wasting my time, they're wasting their time, because neither one of us are going to connect on that level that we want to go. Mm-hmm. Number two is, are they humble? Mm-hmm. And so if I get teachable and humility wrapped into one, that's a man right there I want to work with. And it doesn't mean that, he's got it all together. I certainly don't have it all together. And, I'm going to sit there and say, look, I'm going to tell you things that have failed with me. I'm going to tell you things that have succeeded with me. Lance is going to do the same thing. We're going to tell you about our kids as young child, as teenagers, as adults, and what works, what doesn't. But that doesn't mean that's necessarily for you. But we're going to be raw. We're going to be honest. And the reality of it is, when I see guys that are teachable, when I see men that I've been walking with 2-3 years, one thing that you learn is discipleship is a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You read about the 12 disciples. It was 3 years together. Jesus did this not for his benefit, but for men, to show us what it really means to disciple other men. And that is walking with men intentionally and being in relationship with them in order to be disciples.
Mm-hmm.
After that, we get into the idea of purity and how important purity is to a man of God and to a disciple of Jesus Christ. Then we get into stewardship and how important your role being a steward of what God's given you to steward on this earth, your time, your talent, and your treasure, and how important that is. And then finally, and as mostly important, is to do the mission, to be a disciple of Jesus Christ, to share the good news, and not only to talk the talk, but to walk the walk. And so these are things that I'm really looking forward to sharing. And, between Lance and I, between, his experiences with Fight Club, my experiences as Men of Faith, we're not just talking books. We're not just going to tell you, what we think others think that might work. We're telling you from actual factual data and lives transformed. I mean, if I could have time where I bring brothers on, Lance, and you bring brothers on that we walked with, that their marriages were on death's doornail, marriages that had lacked intimacy. I had one guy literally just didn't, looked at me like I was speaking Swahili, trying to talk with him. And I just said, I'll tell you what, you give me the next year and you get serious about what I'm asking you to do, and I'll get serious about what you're asking me to do. We'll do this together. And let's leave your wife out of this. Let's put all the blame, let's put all the responsibility on you. You just turn her over to God and we'll see where you're at. Lance, I can tell you, if I brought this brother on right now, what God did in this man's life is turned him around 180 degrees and made him realize the impact that he was failing as a spiritual leader. Now, it doesn't preclude, guys, if you're listening, oh, sure, blame the guy. No. It takes two to make a marriage. It takes, two to ruin a marriage. And let's be honest, from a Christian perspective, it takes three. It takes Christ to be at the center of your marriage. Yep. When this guy got serious, this is a guy that, he's my cleanup guy. This is a guy that I'm walking with somebody, I need another resource. I need another brother. This is one of the first guys I go to. And this is somebody that I walked with for 2-3 years. And if you asked him today, he'd say, I'm still walking with you. That's just one of many. I've got like a bullpen of like 12, 14 guys literally that I go back and forth with, that like are on my team, that I just know have my back. And the beautiful thing about it is, Lance, if you get this discipleship thing right, honestly, guys, you're listening to this and you want to get serious, I'm telling you right now, you may glean, you may take, you may learn from Lance and I, but the beautiful thing about mentoring, the beautiful thing about coaching with guys and walking with you is that Lance and I are going to get more from you than you'll ever get from us. But that's the way that God intended it, is that discipleship is a two-way street. And so with that, Lance, I'm stoked, I'm pumped up, and I'm really looking forward to this next chapter. What else you got?
Yeah. And I would just say, you have to think about, when you talk about this, you may have heard of this before, the coaching, mentoring, discipleship thing. And a lot of big companies are doing it now. As a matter of fact, 2/3 of your top executives, kind of use this coaching and mentoring model. And this used to be something you had to be like wealthy or the ultra rich, to have access to some of this stuff. But, we're now, more people are realizing like, hey, this is very it's beneficial. Everybody can benefit from this, and I looked at, the Harvard Medical School study on, the effects on coaching, and what Harvard Medical School, and they were looking at this, said that 80% of people, who received, some sort of coaching like this, reported increased self-confidence. And then 70% showed a benefit with improved work performance, improved relationships, and then much more just better all-around effective communication skills. So you're talking, a good majority of people are saying, hey, I got a lot of benefit out of this thing. It helped me in my marriage, it helped me in my confidence, it helped me in my work, just all around. So again, guys, this is a resource that's going to be available. You can go to the help tab, or you can go to legacydads.org/help. And you can look into this and again, get signed up. Some of this stuff, it's in the very early stages. We're just letting you know about it now. But if you're interested in this, or you think this is something, hey, I might benefit from this, you can go sign up, and then we'll let you know when it comes out. So, Dante, I think we've got to talk about this because we're talking about, okay, we got resources to help you. We threw out the scary word of, mental health and counseling and all this type of stuff.
Yeah, we lost half of our listeners.
Yeah, the guys are like, woo, I'm out, man. But we need to talk about this again is what's your experience? And I want to know, like, I know I've ran into guys and guys are hesitant sometimes to seek advice or help. So, what's your experience on that, and when guys are like, I don't need help, or like we talked about in our podcast, The Lone Ranger, I don't need anybody's help. I can do this on my own. I'm not going to tell somebody my problems, whatever.
All right. Forgive me for doing this, but I got to do this for the reference.
All right.
I'm knocking on the guys' heads right now. Okay. So in reality, when we sit there and like, guys, you're a mechanic, you're a blue collar guy, the car needs an oil change, you're looking at that engine, something's not right. Something needs to be fixed. The back deck is broken, instead of paying for that guy to do it, you're Mr. Fix It. Something's going wrong with kids at school, your wife, the house and all that. You're Mr. Fix It. You're lacking in things that you need to be taken care of in discipleship and walking as a man of God. The reality of it is it goes back to, am I teachable? Mm-hmm. Meaning, am I the king of my life, or is there a higher king with a higher authority in my life? And so the biggest thing is, who's on your throne room? Is it pride? Is it the lust of the flesh, the pride of life that is getting in your way, that you sit there and say, the life is my smorgasbord. I'll get and take whatever I want out of it without consequence, and not really doing what the biblical application is telling me to do as a man of God. Mm-hmm. The other thing too is, why is it really hard for me to ask somebody else? And let's be honest, guys, to sit there, in the Latin culture, we call this machismo. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We don't want to like show weakness, because alpha males never show weakness. Alpha males never ask for help. But yet that is so countercultural, Lance, in some of the special teams that you've dealt with over the time, because the reality of it is, if you don't have your buddy, you don't have the team, you're not nearly as effective as you are versus being individual. And so I think, when we look at that, it becomes so hard for us to look for help, to ask for others to counsel us, or especially to be in discipleship. And it really comes down to one simple word, guys. One simple word that gets in the way of fixing our relationships with our wife, our relationship with our kids, our relationships with our job, coworkers, or boss, our relationships with our God, creator, and maker. And that's pride. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Lance?
So and I would say that's kind of my experience with this is I didn't want to admit that I had some issues to work on because of that pride thing. And I didn't want to, and then there was the time commitment and, I've got to go do I got to put aside time in my schedule to go do this. And then honestly, I think that one of the big issues too is just having to be vulnerable. That was always a sticking point for me, realizing that I have to actually open up and talk about, what I'm really feeling. But what I personally found was that it was actually beneficial for me to have an outside objective person who I could talk to, and they wouldn't get upset. So it's not like I'm talking to my wife and, she'd get upset or she's emotionally involved in it or something like that. It was an objective outside person. And again, the benefit of what we're talking about doing here too is, I'm not a member of your church. I'm not your coworker. I'm not going to look, I'm basically an outsider with an objective point of view that they can look at this and kind of say, okay, hey, maybe if you looked at these areas, there's some areas. And the thing I learned was that there was, other people can see blind spots that we don't see in ourselves. And so what I realized from doing counseling and stuff like that is they were able to look at areas from a different perspective and then offer some suggestions on how I could improve. And it was very, very beneficial for me. Dante, what you got?
Lance, let's be honest here. There's also a stigma with trying to seek help. According to the APA, there are two types of stigmas associated with getting help. Social stigma, which involves the prejudiced or misinformed attitudes others have around mental illness. And then there's a self-perceived stigma, which involves an internalized stigma that we tell ourselves about getting help. When we listen to these forms of stigma, this can lead to obviously a reluctance to seek help, delaying or getting help, which usually increases the problems the longer we wait. Social rejection, avoidance, isolation, perhaps maybe worsening psychological well-being, relationship issues among friends and families, spouses, kids, distant relatives, and increased feelings of shame and self-doubt. But like you said, Lance, I mean, when we're really honest, 70% to 80% of people who seek help show increased self-confidence and improve work performance, improve relationships, and obviously more effective communication skills. I mean, when the reality of it is, when we decide to get medical help or professional help, or go to the doctor when we know that we've got something wrong with the knee, something wrong with the brain, something wrong with the vision, typically when we realize that it's not as bad as our imagination takes us, all of a sudden the confidence comes back, and we find ourselves now getting the help that we need.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying there, Dante, is just like we just need to act like men, and realize and we mean that in a biblical sense, that realize that if you need some help in some areas, then we got to take the steps to actually get some help, and it's not, I think it takes more of a courageous man to say, hey, I need some help, or hey, brother, will you walk with me? Or maybe I should, try to, work on these areas. That takes a lot more courage than to just ignore problems, isolate, put your head in the sand and act like, things aren't matter. So, and I think, Dante, for me, this is not just something you use when things aren't going well. Even when life is going well, I think it's beneficial to have a coach or a counselor, because then once things are going well, that's where you can really look at your life and say, okay, how do I get to that next level in my life or my relationships or my work or whatever? How can I, really start growing now? Things are at a sense of normalcy. We're not in a crisis here, but I would really like to expand my spiritual walk. I would really like to get serious about, God using me in ways I haven't been used before. And I don't know about you, Dante, but my spiritual walk has grown from coaches and being mentored when other areas of my life are going really well. That's when my spiritual walk really took off. So that's it, guys, that we're kind of rolling out these resources. Some of them are brand new in the infancy phase, but, if these sound like something you could use, go over there, check it out, sign up, let us know you're interested, and then we'll give you updates on it, as this stuff rolls out. So, Dante, let's wrap this thing up a little bit. And what are some final thoughts on all this?
Guys, I just want to tell you, don't be discouraged, be encouraged. You're looking for something, you're looking for resources. You guys have been hitting us up, Facebook, social media. You've been, emailing Lance, you've been emailing myself. We're there for you. And I wish we had, a full-time ability to do everything that is called for us to do with Legacy Dads. And, we're humbled, we're honored to be a part of this. And we really hear you, and we're really listening. And, we're getting slowly into the phases that we can spend more and more time providing these resources for you guys. But, we're trying to be faithful, and we're trying to be good stewards. But I'm asking you guys, I'm challenging you, what is the definition of insanity? It's doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting that you'll have a different result every time. And the thing about it is, some of us are on this crazy train. We don't know how to fix our relationships that's broken. Maybe some of you can resonate with what Lance said. Him and Jen had divorce papers signed and pretty much almost empty. And to the fact that, even with some separation, that, you listen to their story, they come back. Some brothers that I talk to, guys, we're talking about personal experiences between, myself, 20 years of marriage, Lance and Jen, over 20 years of marriage. And the idea is that we're saying this because we believe in it. We believe that God has a purpose for you. We believe that God has a vision for you, and that, he wants you to do something, and you were built, to be on this earth, to glorify God, to give you, the ability to look what he's given you as a steward and to really honor him. And so I think, if anything you take away from, if something's broken, if something is just out of whack, it's okay to ask for help. And if you're not comfortable grabbing an elder, a pastor, a friend in your church, the Legacy Dads is a place to start. And the idea is, as you start growing, as people start seeing a difference, we ask you to, to pay it forward. And the idea is, if this helps you, that you see another brother that maybe is where you're at, or maybe 2 steps behind, that you grab this brother, and that we continue to do this, not for like what we want to do for Lance and Dante, but we get more joy out of the idea when our listeners actually glean from, things that we're saying that are biblically based and connect. And we just feel that God's given us so much, and we're so blessed by it. And it doesn't mean that we just have this awesome life. We have, the same struggles, same health issues. You go back to the stories. I almost lost a wife, and Lance almost lost a wife, through divorce. And the idea is we know the cost. We've counted it. Lance has given many years to serving our country, all over the world, and putting himself in harm's way. We truly get sacrifice. And the idea is that, we had brothers that poured into us. We came together, in partnership to realize that, man, we're better together than apart. And the idea is that when you do this together in the way that God contended, or intended for us to do it, the idea is that you're so much better for it. Lance, close us out on that one.
Yep. I totally agree. I'm not even going to add anything because I think you hit it all that we need to. So, guys, with that, as always, we want to say, you can go check that out. Again, legacydads.org/help, or just go over to the website, and it's up at the top of the page on the far right. It says help. You can click on the tab there to get more information on that resources. And as always, guys, we thank you guys so much for your support. You can head over to Apple Podcasts, Pandora, and Spotify to subscribe, give us a great 5-star review, and hit us up on Instagram and the closed Facebook page if you want to talk a little bit more about this. Or if you just want more information or just got a question to ask, let us know, and we'll answer it for you. But with that, guys, as always, we want to say we love you guys. We thank you guys. We are praying for you guys. Take care. We'll see you next week, and God bless.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Legacy Dads Podcast with Lance and Dante. Real men, authentic faith. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit legacydads.org and on Facebook.com/LegacyDads and on Twitter @Legacy_Dad. If you enjoyed today's episode, please review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time on the Legacy Dads Podcast. Real men, authentic faith.